Welcome everybody here to our back to school virtual drop-in for parents living with arthritis or other chronic illnesses and disability. Honestly, it won't be a super long evening because I know as parents, we likely have a lot on the go in the evenings, and I don't want to keep people too long, so we will be efficient with our time. So anyways, thank you so much for attending, and we'll be featuring our guest, Mariah Leach, who will also pass things over to in a few minutes. Um, this is just a land acknowledgement. You know, I live, work, and play on the territory of the Anishinaabe Nation and the Algonquin peoples in the place known as Ottawa, or colonially as Ottawa. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders, both past and present. I know we all come from different places in Canada or globally. So I just thought we might just reflect personally about the land you live, work, and play on out of respect to the Indigenous peoples where you're located. That said, just a brief slide about CAPA and some of the different things that we do. So this is one of many webinars that we've offered to offer education and support to people living with arthritis. So it's one of the key things that we do. We are a patient-driven and managed organization, and many of our and all of our board of directors, including some of our staff, live with various forms of arthritis. So the patient perspective, or the perspective of people living with the condition and those affected, are at the center of everything that we do. We advocate for patient perspectives and policy making across Canada, as well as support patient engagement and research. And so you can go to our website, www.arthritispatient.ca, to learn a little more about that. I'm just letting someone else in there. And so really that just, brings me to a few housekeeping items, I guess, before we get started. We'll be recording this webinar and uploading it to our CAPA YouTube channel and website for education purposes. Like the website, this really is intended for education, information, and communication, and doesn't constitute medical advice. Really, we're going to be passing it over to Mariah, who will speak for a number of minutes, and we'll open it up to an informal chat. You can put your questions in the chat, and I'll monitor for that. But if not, I've got some backup questions too to kind of get things started, and we can just go based on that as well. So, now to introduce our speaker. Mariah is a writer, patient advocate, and mom of three who's been living with rheumatoid arthritis since she was 25. She's the founder of Mamas Facing Forward, which has a website and Facebook group that offers support to other parents living with arthritis and other chronic illness. I know myself, I've even benefited from this personally as, someone that lives with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and, navigating pregnancy and parenting while living with this disease. So it's been a really good, safe space, I find, when things aren't always going well for me, because that's just can be the nature, right, of living with chronic illness. So I highly encourage you all to consider subscribing to whatever on her website, or following Mamas Facing Forward on Facebook. And so with that, I'll let you share your presentation, Mariah, and I go from there.
Did I do it? I did it.
We can see it. Yes.
Yay. All right. So as Lori mentioned, I'm Mariah, and I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis since I was 25 years old. Here's me and my family today. Today, my boys are 12 and 10, and my daughter is 6. And all three of them, my pregnancies occurred after my RA diagnosis. So managing my health and being a mom, something I've always been handling all at the same time. But when I decided I wanted to become a parent, there were hardly any resources out there at the time that focused on pregnancy or parenting with a chronic illness. It just didn't exist. And, I'm old, and back in the day, there was not as much social media. So you couldn't even connect with just another human who had, done what you were considering and could talk to you about it and make you realize that it was a totally valid life choice to become a parent, even with your own chronic illness issues. So back in the day, I started Mama's Facing Forward, and I just wanted to throw my group information and my website and my email up there right away because parenting and chronic illness is a huge topic. We'll never get through it all. And I'm totally open to, more discussion and talking more. And please reach out if you have any questions that don't get answered today. I also wanted to take a quick minute to note that I realize not all parents and not all pregnant individuals identify as mamas, right? I originally started the group Mamas Facing Forward based on my own lived experience and knowing that I am an overachiever and trying not to bite off more than I could chew at the time. My focus started on, women and moms to be, but I'm always open to growing our resources and collaborating more. So again, on those lines, if you ever have questions there, please reach out. All right, let's jump in. I'm going to share a couple of the best overall tips that I have for parenting while living with a chronic illness. And while every family is unique, these specific tips may or may not work for you, but I hope they encouraged you to think about things that might make things a little easier in your own family. So here's my first one. It's what I think is a crucial strategy to fill your own cup first. It's crucial for any parent, but it's especially crucial if you've got your own health condition that you are dealing with. You can't take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And I like this cup metaphor better than that one we all know about the oxygen mask. They say on the plane, put on your mask before you put on their masks. But we all know it would be totally possible to put on your child's mask first and then pass out in the process. And I think that that's something that we do sometimes as parents is we put our kids' needs first to the detriment of our own. So I like to remind myself that it's not physically possible to pour from an empty cup. I've got to fill my own cup before I can fill my kid's cup or my husband's cup or my family's cup. And when I struggle in this area, it really helps me to remind myself that not only am I taking care of myself, I'm setting a really good example of self-care to my kids. And I'm emphasizing to them that each individual family member has needs that are important and things that they deserve to have taken care of, So everybody deserves to have their needs met, including parents. And so when I struggle to put myself first, I remind myself that I'm doing it for myself and I'm doing it for them. My second strategy here is to customize your home. And again, every family is unique, and the examples I'm about to give might not be good ones for your family. But I do think it makes sense to think a little bit about what you can do, when you're feeling up to it and when you have more energy. What can you do to make your home run more smoothly? What can you do to make your children gain independence which not only helps them, it also helps you? So here's a few examples from my home. The first picture over here with the green and yellow bins. When my kids were little, I used a system of toy rotation, which meant that those 5 bins would be the only toys we would have out in our playroom at any given time. Any other toys that we had would be stored in a closet that was not accessible to the kids. And there were 2 things that were great about this. One was that it made the playroom a lot easier for all of us to clean up because there were just fewer toys out all of the time. And the other thing that was really great about it was on a day that I had less energy or more pain, I could bring, new toys out of the closet or the garage and put them out for my kids. And that would, a toy that they haven't played with in 3 months engages them a lot better than a toy that's sitting on the counter every day of the week, right? So on days when I needed them to be a little more entertained, I could pull out these toys and get their attention keyed away that way. For my older kids, we have this visual family calendar. It shows, what each kid is up to for each day of the week. And that allows them to take some responsibility for their own schedules. We also use a system of zone chores where each kid is responsible for a zone in the house for a week. We've got the tables and the counters, we've got the floors, and we've got the picking up of common spaces. And the idea here is that when we rotate these zones, they realize that any mess they make in the house becomes something that they eventually have to clean up. And that we all work together to clean it up. So for 10 minutes after dinner, we do our zones every day, and that helps us keep the house running in a way that doesn't all land on me. And you can see over here on the side, we also collaborated on this ideas chart of things that they can do when they're bored so that they don't always have to come to me and me providing entertainment for them. I'm working to make them, independent and contribute to the household. This one, I think, has been the hardest one for me to embrace, but maybe also the most important. And it's the idea of embracing a simple schedule. And I think this is really hard to do in this day and age where, everyone is overscheduled, and being overscheduled is a status symbol. Everyone else's kids are doing sports and clubs and volunteering, and they've got so many things to do. You worry that your own kids are going to fall behind, right? And it's really overwhelming to keep up with for a healthy parent. And so for a parent with health issues, it's even harder to keep up. So here's a secret I want to tell you, and it is completely okay to limit your family's activities to a level that you can achieve without impacting your health negatively. Like, it's 100% okay to prioritize the things that are the most important to your family and to let go of everybody else's expectations. It really is. I think it's also helpful to purposely leave blank space in your calendar. For one thing, I think downtime is really good for kids. I think it's good for them to get bored and get creative and figure out what to do. But also, we know that chronic illness it goes up and down. You never quite know what you're going to get from day to day. So having a little bit of blank space in your calendar gives you some wiggle room when you end up dealing with flares or issues that need to be addressed. And like I said, this is a challenging one. And one thing that really helped me work through this idea was a book by Brene Brown called The Gifts of Imperfection. In this book, Brene provides 10 guideposts for wholehearted living. There's things to focus on and things to let go on. And I think the whole book is great and worth a read. But guidepost number 7 was particularly impactful for me. It was this idea that we should work on cultivating play and rest while letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. It helped me kind of give myself permission to embrace a simple schedule with my family. So right now, each of my kids do one extracurricular that they're really into, and we prioritize family time on the weekends, and it works really well for our family. And I like that we made a conscious, deliberate choice to pick what worked best for our family. This is another good one. I think that I come to more and more as my kids get older. It's a strategy that another mom living with arthritis taught me a long time ago, and it's don't be afraid to change your mind. A lot of times we think we're going to be this type of parent, or we think we're going to be that type of parent, or we should do it. We want to use this method or that method, and it's easy to stick to those methods even when they're not really working for your family. Families are dynamic. They're constantly changing. The kids are growing. The interactions between the different kids are growing. So, what worked for me as a mom in one picture here on the left don't work the same way for me today as a mom on the picture on the right. So don't be afraid to change your mind. It's really important to being open to modifying your parenting technique if they're not serving you, or if it's making it really hard for you to care for your health. You can always, as important as routine is, you can always reevaluate those routines and see if you can come up with a better plan for your family. I also wanted to direct you to this particular article that's currently up on mamaspacingforward.com. For this article, we asked a number of real moms who are living with chronic illness for their very best back to school hacks for avoiding back to school stress. And there's some really great different ideas in there that I love for you to go take a look at because they've got more ideas than I do, which is really great. And I just want to say that, no matter what sort of issues you are facing with your own health as a parent, if you have help and support, which you are reaching out for by even listening to what I'm saying right now, you're more than capable of navigating parenthood with resilience and raising caring, well-adjusted kids. And so I'm so excited that you're here and that you're listening, and I'd be more than happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
Well, thank you so much, Mariah. I think those are a lot of really excellent tips. I love how action oriented they are too, and just really reflect perhaps a change in outlook and mindset, right?
I think your mindset can be really important, particularly if you've got your own challenges that you're dealing with, because that's what you go into every day with, every single day. And so it certainly shapes your family and your kids.
Yes, yeah, I know. I know. And I mean, as a parent in this day and age, right, where we have work, we have you just even keeping up with the expectations. I love that advice of just kind of carving out your own space.
It's a hard one. It really is. To not feel crushed under the pressure of like, I should be doing all of these things. And if I'm not doing all of these things, I'm a bad parent or my kids are not getting what they need. It took me a while to get there, but like I have come to the conclusion that the life and the schedule that I'm giving my kids is exactly what they need. And it's exactly what our family needs. And a healthy, happy family is the best thing I can give them.
Yeah, I know it is. Sorry, I'm just going to change this to a multi-pin here. But no, absolutely. I wondered if, as a parent myself, as, I live with illnesses myself, right? Including, rheumatoid arthritis. But I found this particularly hard during the pandemic. But I parent a child who is lives with a disability or is neurodivergent, and I found it hard at times to really like balance the needs, like my own needs with their needs, and kind of coming to like a happy medium, I guess, in terms of that. I don't know if you've ever encountered any of those issues or seen anyone on the community, right, who sort of face
Yeah,
similar challenges.
it is a major challenge. And it's an area that Mama's Facing Forward has been lacking for a number of years, as I, for a while there, didn't have a lot of personal experience with it. But I'm excited to say that I'm bringing in some people who do. And pretty soon we're going to have some materials up on the site that are going to address that issue specifically. And I think
Mhm.
those resources can be useful to any parent. But if you're dealing with, my cousin likes to say neurospicy, if
Yes,
you've got
exactly.
kind of a neurospicy family member, that does present some additional challenges that you have to figure out how to juggle. And it does kind of bring the idea of your own self-care into like sharp relief. It makes everything a little bit more intense. And so while I think all of these pieces of advice still apply, I also recognize that there are definitely some challenges there that I myself haven't figured out how to face as I'm navigating this. And I think that's one of the really great things about having the Mamas Facing Forward group is that you can talk to people in the group who are going through similar things to what you're going through. And so even if we don't, as a group, have all the answers or have the best advice, we can't solve the problem necessarily immediately. We can still talk to each other and support each other and recognize what each of us is going through. And there is real value and real power there in knowing that you're not, struggling up against this all alone.
Right. Yeah, I know. No, absolutely. I think it can be really valuable. That's where I've, even derived some personal value with the Mamas Facing
Mm-hmm.
Forward group. Is just sometimes you kind of feel like you're out on your own, and it's just nice, even if they're not like, in the house with you or whatever, that
Right.
connection to be like,
No, I mean, when I
yeah.
first thought about getting pregnant, all I wanted was to just talk to someone else who had navigated this before. And then after my first baby was born, and at the time the research data wasn't as good, so I'm sitting there making a choice between, do I treat my RA? Do I breastfeed my baby? Like, what do I do? I didn't know anyone else who was going through anything remotely similar. And it's very isolating and it makes it a challenging situation even more challenging. So one of the main goals of the website, of the group, of my own passion project is to just connect people to each other so that you can remember that there are other people out there who are dealing with these issues. And also we've got a hive mind, like someone has experienced something similar, and we can figure it out together.
I know. Yeah, like absolutely. And I find sometimes I even see myself like searching the group to see if
Yeah.
there's been like a prior
Well, it's been
conversation
running for
about
years.
it.
There's a treasure trove in there, I'm sure.
There is. It is like a giant hive mind, that's for sure. No, for sure. I wonder too, like, I mean, you talk about routine as well, right? I think it's sort of embedded within, or kind of
Mm-hmm.
having those, like, oh, you're bored, here's the idea board, which I love. Like I had done something similar, but just on a piece of paper. But now I now I want to write them out on the board. But I just
I just got this summer. I'm bored. What should I do? Now I can be like, there's a whole list of ideas that we came up with together. go choose one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that, and I think I'm going to use it. So it's just more in everyone's face, especially my 11-year-old. But I wondered if you had anything else maybe to add around, with work. And work, of course, can be challenging
Mhm.
as you live with chronic illness, and then the parenting. Because I know myself years ago when I did become a parent, right? Like 17 years ago now, it's been a long time, but I found that was like a really big adjustment. And I don't know if
For
there's
sure. Yeah.
anything, trying to manage all the demands of like a then pretty much full-time job with full-time parenting, right? The world isn't always a nice place to parents generally, let alone parents with chronic illness, right?
I think, I think that is an area where I try to focus on kindness to myself and to like, maybe as far as work is concerned, I prioritize the most important things to get done that day. And then there's some things that would be nice to get done, but I'm not going to beat myself up over if those don't happen today. Like I'm going to give myself credit for accomplishing what I am able to accomplish. And I'm going to give myself a break on the stuff that needs to wait until tomorrow to be accomplished. And because I think, as a working parent, it can be really easy to feel like you're not giving 100% to your job and you're not giving 100% to your kids. And it's like you're losing in either direction. But I think you can also say you're succeeding in both directions. You're managing a job in a really difficult circumstances and you're managing as a parent in really difficult circumstances. And it's not easy to do those two together. So it's not going to be perfect all the time. Sometimes work's going to get more of your attention. Sometimes parenting is going to get more of your attention. And like a family, it's a dynamic changing situation. And I think as long as you're focusing on doing your best in both areas and being kind to yourself and giving yourself credit for what you can accomplish, I think you can tell yourself you're doing a great job.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I know, on that, taking a practical, example, I know I used to go to bed really early. And I mean, when the kids are younger, of course, if we all go to bed together, it's totally fine. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
like lounging in bed at 9 o'clock, just trying to take care of yourself, right? So that you
Mm-hmm.
have the energy to sort of face the next day, and
You
that
got to get
sort of
creative
thing.
sometimes with
Yeah.
where the self-care gets fit in, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a really tricky one when they're little and they really do need so much help and so much attention and so much supervision. And that's when I think, you start practicing asking for help from the people around you, whether it's, a spouse or your own parents or friends or neighbors or whoever might be available to offer you help. They say that whole the cliche, it takes a village. Like you really cannot do it 100% by yourself. You've got to have help somewhere. And I know asking for help can be super challenging. So what I did at first was I made a deal with myself that when somebody offered me help, any kind of help, I was just going to say yes, thank you, instead of no, it's fine, I've got it, I can do it myself, like whatever. So that little switch in my brain where someone offered me help, my mom would be like, hey, can I unload your dishwasher before I leave? Yes, thank you. Can I hold the baby for 10 minutes so you can take a shower? Yes, thank you. That allowed me not only to receive some help that I was having difficulty asking for, it also allowed me to like gift gratitude back to my friends and family who did really want to help me, but didn't
Mm.
necessarily know how. And as I got better accepting help that was offered, it got easier to articulate the help that I actually needed and ask for that more specifically. So asking for help is a big one, another challenging one, but I think it's one that's worth focusing on, particularly if you are living with a chronic illness.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, or just if they're there to help, just letting it happen. I
And
know
and
so.
and as the kids get older, they can help too. Like I'm getting to the point where my kids are a real help. Like and we can talk about it and we can talk about the days where I'm not feeling well and what's going on, and and they know that they can help,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
powerful to them too, because then it's not this scary thing happening to mommy that they have, that's scary. It's, oh well, that's how it is and here's what I can do to help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Or even normalizing like my kids, it was funny. I wasn't feeling the fatigue, right? It's like a never ending issue, right? And so I was laying in bed, and instead of waking me up, now he is 11, right? So he's a bit older, like you said. He's kind of learned to just like, close the door and walk away and not make a lot of noise, like when he sees me like that anymore. And it's like,
But I
I'm,
think that's a good point. Like somebody has mentioned in the chat that sometimes it's really hard to get help. And I absolutely validate that. Like it really is, especially when people don't really understand what you're going through and or maybe it's invisible or they think it's not real. I I absolutely understand that and I have been there and it's really hard. Sometimes that is a place where you can be kind to yourself and say, they don't understand, but I'm going to help myself, even if they don't agree with the way you're handling it. Like you said, like sometimes you need to go lay down when maybe you think you ought to be reading a book to your kids or whatever. It's a challenging one for sure. And I wish there was a magic answer. I do think, interestingly, as we get into this kind of post pandemic period and people are learning about long COVID, there's starting to be a little bit more understanding for how somebody could end up with an illness that's, not their fault and it impacts their life. And I think it's interesting to me to see it happening because I'm sort of hoping it will bring more awareness of what people are dealing with when they have health issues. And hopefully that opens people up to being more helpful and loving to each other. But in my experience, part of getting the help is also letting my friends and family in, letting them see what the real struggles are, not hiding it. Because if I hide what I'm struggling, then why you even need the help in the first place, right?
yeah.
And I know also easier said than done. All of this is easier said
I
than
know.
done,
It's a real
but worth
shift,
thinking
right?
about. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a real shift. I mean, if you do have the support around you to just kind of let it happen, like kind of got used to over time when my mom
And I
would
do
come
think that,
over, she would just like
yeah,
clean my kitchen. And at first I was like, no, I'm going to clean my own kitchen. And then eventually I was just like, just going to let her be. This is how she wants to help. Like, let her, like you said, unload the dishwasher, wipe my counters. It's one less thing for me to have to think about, right?
and even if you don't have people in your everyday life, um, connecting to people online just to talk about it and kind of commiserate and get some validation, I think is a valuable path too.
Yeah. Well, and I have one maybe final question that might link into this. And I don't know if maybe you've got some advice on the group or on your website about like single parenthood, right? Because it gets to be a little harder, right? Not
For
having sort
sure.
of a backup or somebody, right?
No, that's another topic where I'm always
Yeah.
hoping to generate some more support since it's not my lived experience, so I can't speak to it personally, but I can definitely see how that would put a lot more on your plate and make it more challenging. There are definitely some single parents in the group who give advice and talk to each other and support one another, and that's great. If you are a single parent and want to share your story on the group, I'm always open to that. Um, Again, I think it's you have to kind of build a village and a chosen family from the people who are around you, and it doesn't have to be a romantic partner that you're talking to, relying on, sharing with. It can be anyone really. Um, but I do recognize that that is another challenge that makes things more complicated for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've heard from some people in terms of some ways if you can even find like a young person in the neighborhood, maybe a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
a helper type of thing that you can maybe bring in or, of
Mm-hmm.
course, that would require some money, right, to offer,
Right,
but usually it's maybe a little less, kind of like a,
right.
less than
I
minimum
mean,
wage or
everything is a
whatever.
trade-off. Everything's a
Yeah.
trade-off in one way or the other. So you just have to get creative and try something. If it doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I know in Canada too, like if you are sick enough, right? I'll say sick enough, not according to me, but according to the
Right.
criteria for home care and these sorts of things, there might be some support that could be provided on that front on an ongoing basis, or at least I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that. Perhaps some good resources there, like Center for Independent Living, for example, has got organizations usually across Canada and different cities, from what I understand.
That's great to
So,
know.
yeah, just as an additional, if you're kind of uh, trying to find some help, right? And because of friends or family or whoever isn't around or not
Mhm.
supportive or understand your illness, then might be some more formal support, I guess, that people can get. So,
I think that's a great idea.
I guess with that, I mean, I welcome the audience to add any questions or comments, and if you have a burning question, but you know, I'll maybe wait a few seconds, but if not, then we might just sign off. It was meant to be a really informal conversation, and I think we've achieved that, eh, Mariah? I'm pretty happy
Yeah.
with that.
I mean, I think back to school is a challenging time of transition, like regardless of what you were doing over the summer, what they're doing for now. What you're doing for now is adjusting to a new routine. Your kids are adjusting to a new routine. It's different for everybody. So if things, I would end by saying, if things seem really challenging now, be kind to yourself, give yourself space, give yourself time. Hopefully, as the routine of the year gets going, you can find ways to make it every day, day to day, easier. And the things that I used to tell myself near the beginning of my illness when I was really, really struggling, or like right after my first baby was born and I was untreated and flaring, take it one day at a time. If one day is too much, take it 1 hour at a time. Take it 1 minute at a time as a parent sometimes. But like, know that you can get through one to the next, and that it's not always going to be as hard as it is right now.
No, I think that's a great note to end on, Mariah. Thank you so much. It's a long journey, right? As a parent,
Sure
as
is.
from beginning to end. The nights are long, but the years go quickly, as they say.
That is
As
true for sure.
it is, as I have a 17-year-old myself, it's like it just feels like the other day that she was a baby, and each stage, as you said, is unique. So
Hmm.
thank you so much, and thank
Yeah.
you for our audience here
Thanks for
for
joining us.
listening in. And I'm glad this has proven to be useful in the short term. And feel free to reach out. Mariah's given her
Yeah.
contact info. I'll also send a copy of the recording to everybody after if you want to re-listen when you've got some quiet time and babies are asleep, or there's a moment between when after dinner when there's a bit of time to think. So thank you so much, Mariah, and I'll
Thanks for having me.
thank you so much.